Web Services offers a complete set of secure compute, storage, application, and deployment services that help companies launch and scale their IT infrastructures while lowering costs. But did you know that you're still responsible for protecting your own AWS-based assets, meaning your applications and data, from advanced cyber threats? Protect your AWS with Barracuda Network's advanced firewall solutions. Visit AWS Marketplace or barracuda.com/AWS to learn more.
Finding great people to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Tired of it? It's time to try ZipRecruiter, where 80% of employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within 1 day. How? Using powerful technology, ZipRecruiter matches your job to the right candidates fast. So, while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, only ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/free for your free trial. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
The opinions expressed on this show are those of the participants, the hosts, the guests, and the callers, and do not necessarily reflect the opinions and views of Southern Stone Communications, WNDB Radio, its employees, and friends. Comments regarding WNDB's programming can be addressed to D. Lang at DaytonaRadio.com.
Live from Daytona Beach, Florida, bringing a voice to America's forgotten working class, speaking the truth for the America that Washington left behind, making America great again, 1 hour at a time. This is Trump Talk Live, where we the people have the right voice, presented by the Republican Party of Volusia County. Here now are your hosts for this episode, Vic Baker and Joe Fieldus.
Greetings, fellow American Patriots Republicans. Welcome to the Hurricane Harvey, Stiletto Snark, North Korean missile menace, military surplus, Sheriff Joe Pardon, Gorka exile, 3% GDP, tax reform revival, Mueller muzzle, Antifa antidote episode of Trump Talk Live, the home of fearless truth-telling about President Donald Trump's bold mission to drain the swamp, enforce our laws, unleash our economy, and make America great again, even if never-Trumpers, delusional Democrats, and lefty mobs have to be dragged along the road to recovery. Acts of God have a way of putting a new focus on what's really important in life. In case anyone wonders, it's about faith, family, and neighbors helping neighbors. We're seeing a flood of human decency and common sense in the wake of the worst storm that hit the Lone Star State in modern history. President Donald Trump seized the moment to demonstrate why we elected a decisive CEO to lead America on a path to greatness. When the governors of Texas and Louisiana called for help, President Trump told them, anything you need, we will provide, and we will do so quickly. Even with one arm tied behind his back by a Senate that's been slow-walking his key appointments, this president took command, called his entire cabinet to action, and poured federal resources into the disaster zone long before the deluge began. Snarky lefty media wondered if this president would be caught in the headlights like George W. Bush. They sniped at First Lady Melania Trump, who wore stilettos to Air Force One, only to see her emerge in Texas with sneakers and storm-ready gear. They complained that Trump did not express enough compassion for the victims. Now that's utter nonsense from Trump haters who are running out of ammunition in the face of his proven competence and leadership, not to mention his pledge of a $1 million personal donation to the victims of Harvey in Texas and Louisiana. This is a president handling the worst natural disaster, American natural disaster, of modern times, while at the same time facing the most treacherous international threat since the Cuban Missile Crisis. The madman in Pyongyang has fired a missile directly over Japan. This is a shot across the bow that demands a response beyond diplomacy. President Trump warned of fire and fury if Kim Jong-un did not relent in his ballistic saber rattling. The American response may prove to be devastating beyond all comprehension. The feckless and fearful responses of previous presidents will force President Trump to set himself apart, perhaps no differently than when another controversial president, Harry Truman, ended World War II with Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This will not end well. Trump is taking command after the act of God in Texas. Trump will step up as commander-in-chief to deal with acts of the devil in North Korea. At the same time, our president issued a pardon to Sheriff Joe Arpaio, who was found in contempt for holding up the law against an illegal order of a rogue federal judge. He reversed Obama's nonsensical order, and now Uncle Sam will share essential military surplus equipment with local police to help them keep the peace on our restless streets and come to the rescue in times of natural disaster. Antifa has overplayed its hand in the streets. President Trump stood firm against withering character assassination and misquotes for calling them out as terrorist thugs. Now even some top Democrats and media liars have to admit to the truth that's right before our eyes. And our Congressman, Ron DeSantis, says it's time to put a muzzle on Bob Mueller. Either find something after 6 months of Russia witch hunting, or Congress may pull your funding. All of which leads us to conclude that a Trump landslide is already in the making for 2020. Forget the polls. When have they ever been right? Our thanks tonight to Volusia Teenage Republican Chair Duncan DeMarche, handling our Trump Talk Live graphics flawlessly as always. His stalwart Vice Chairman Melkert Swaggerty is a little under the weather due to the heat. They do a great job, so check out their Facebook page. You can watch this show on Facebook Live on the Volusia County Republican Facebook page, and we invite you to do so if you're not doing so right now. Also on YouTube Live by searching Trump Talk Live on the Vic Baker channel. So, I'm your truth-telling Trump-Republican Vic Baker, co-hosting Trump Talk Live tonight with veteran blogger, incisive analyst, and 2016 Volusia Trump-Pence campaign chairman Joe Fieldis. Joe, I lost my page for a moment and forgot my name.
Good evening, Vic. Hello, friends. On this last day of August, President Trump is dealing with two crises. One is the aftershock of Hurricane Harvey, a natural disaster affecting hundreds of thousands in Texas. The other crisis is in Asia, where a one-man disaster named Kim Jong-un is threatening the entire world. In time, the situation in Texas will improve, but the crisis on the Korean Peninsula is going from bad to worse. On Monday, North Korea fired a nuke-capable missile that tracked over Hokkaido, Japan, population some 5.5 million. The missile ultimately landed 125 miles offshore. Think about that. What if Mexico fired such a missile over Tampa, Orlando, Volusia County, and it landed 125 miles off of Daytona Beach? What would be our reaction? On Tuesday, China said the situation is at a tipping point, and they're right about that. Yesterday, President Trump said that talking to North Korea is not the answer, and he's right about that. So how did we get to the edge of this cliff? The historical fact is that every president since Dwight D. Eisenhower has kicked the North Korean problem down the road in hopes that the regime would eventually collapse under the weight of its own economic failures. Yet here we are, with North Korea now owning nuclear weapons, threatening South Korea and Japan, and apparently have a missile delivery system capable of sending nukes to America. This last bit of shocking news was only recently made public. The undeniable fact is that in dealing with North Korea, diplomacy has failed. It's failed under many presidents and for many decades. What if diplomacy fails again? What if only a military solution remains? Secretary of Defense Mattis spoke about this in May.
This regime is a threat to the region, to Japan, to South Korea. And in the event of war, they would bring danger to China and to Russia as well. But the bottom line is it would be a catastrophic war if this turns into combat, if we're not able to resolve this situation through diplomatic means.
So what will an American military strike require of us? To answer, I'll refer to analysis by geopolitical intelligence publication Stratfor. In January, Stratfor published a profile of what an attack on North Korea might look like. Quote, to begin, the United States could assemble 10 B-2 stealth bombers for a deep mission strike. The Air Force could also deploy 24 F-22 Raptor tactical fighter aircraft. The Navy can place 2 Ohio-class cruise missile submarines off the coast of North Korea. These submarines can deploy more than 300 missiles, and when combined with destroyers and cruisers from 7th Fleet, home-ported in Yokosuka, Japan, the United States could use more than 600 Tomahawk cruise missiles for the mission. During the strike, the B-2 bombers alone are more than enough to dismantle all of North Korea's known nuclear production infrastructure. The B-2 first wave would enable the F-22 fighters and the next wave of 600 or so cruise missiles to focus on destroying North Korea's delivery vehicles. The United States has more than enough firepower to do this. However, absent the use of nuclear weapons or the invasion and occupation of North Korea, the United States cannot guarantee the complete removal of the threat of a North Korean nuclear attack. End quote. Folks, this supremely dangerous situation has no good answer, and time is about up. The status quo can no longer be tolerated. President Trump has been left holding the bag, and both he and we are going to need lots of prayer in the days ahead. Vic, let's roll.
Okay, Joe, we are in the midst of a natural disaster unlike any we have seen in our times, and we've seen some bad ones here in Florida and Texas or around the Gulf. But here's a Roger Simon commentary. Harvey will be the turning point of the Trump presidency. No doubt a hardcore of hate-filled bozos drunk on some witless ideology will always be with us. There's still a market for Guy Fawkes masks or adjunct junior college professors to pretend they're violent anarchist revolutionaries out of some Dostoevsky novel that they never finished. And the tone-deaf nitwits, says Roger L. Simon, on the L.A. City Council did choose the occasion of an ongoing massive natural disaster to replace Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day. Nonetheless, a flood of Noah-like proportions has a way of focusing the mind, at least for some, maybe most of us. He posits, and we invite you to read Roger L. Simon's commentary, Joe, that says this is probably the turning point that shows Trump, yes, he is a president, and yes, he is in command. He's getting high marks for hurricane response. Writing in the Wall Street Journal, Tevi Troy, an expert on presidents responding to disasters, says, Washington's disaster authorities appear to be in sync with the state on roles and responsibilities. FEMA and its leader, Brock Long, deployed resources as Harvey approached. The government response as a whole appears well coordinated. He cites Rear Admiral W. Craig Vanderwagen, a former career emergency manager. Early read is that the executive branch is performing well under this president. The first rule is the personnel. He surrounded himself with leaders experienced in the area, including General John Kelly, who's his chief of staff and the former Homeland Security Secretary. Long's Trump's selection to head FEMA is an experienced hand. So we're getting a break, the LA Times says, from our pundit addiction, and people are actually on the cable channels reporting real news. You know, at a point, aside from the stiletto heels thing against Melania, they were hitting up Trump, saying he wasn't showing compassion for the victims. Well, here are some comments he made in on Harvey during his visit to Springfield, Missouri. He made these comments about what the toll that this natural disaster is taking. Let's listen to
torrential rains and terrible flooding continue to pose a grave danger to life and to property. Our first responders have been doing absolutely heroic work to shepherd people out of harm's way, and their courage and devotion has saved countless lives. They represent truly the very best of America.
And he talked about how we all rise to the occasion during these times of trying natural acts.
In difficult times such as these, we see the true character of the American people, their strength, their love, and their resolve. We see friend helping friend, neighbor helping neighbor, and stranger helping stranger. And together, we will endure and we will overcome.
And the master builder, Donald Trump, talks about compassion for the people and the terrible losses that they've suffered. There's your compassion, folks.
To those Americans who have lost loved ones, all of America is grieving with you, and our hearts are joined with yours forever. The citizens of Texas and the Gulf Coast need all the prayers, support, and resources our communities have to offer. Recovery will be tough, but I have seen the resilience of the American spirit firsthand all over this country. To the people of Houston and across Texas and Louisiana, we are here with you today. We are with you tomorrow, and we will be with you every single day after to restore, recover, and rebuild.
We'll return with more Trump Talk Live in just a moment.
Your voice can be heard loud and clear right here on Trump Talk Live. Our local number is 239-0033. You can call us toll-free from anywhere in the USA at 800-927-0033. Stay tuned for more Trump Talk Live, bringing a voice to America's forgotten working class 1 hour at a time.
Feeling stuck in a state of compensation stagnation? You know, another year with no raise. Then let State Farm agent Sonia Mori in DeLand help you get to a better state with a discount double check that can stretch your hard-earned dollars a little farther. Sonia will go through your car insurance to make sure you're getting all the discounts you deserve. Discounts that could add up to 40% and put a few hundred extra dollars in your pocket. Sound good? Then get your budget to a better state by calling State Farm agent Sonia Mori in DeLand today. Discounts may vary state to state.
Are you near retirement age? Are you thinking about future living arrangements? Then Alliance Community in DeLand is the smart choice, with a maintenance-free lifestyle and the flexibility of options such as private homes, duplexes, assisted living, rehab, skilled nursing, or memory care. You don't have to wonder about your future care. Alliance Community in DeLand is designed to work with your individual lifestyle in mind. Plan early and take control of your future. Don't rely on someone else to decide for you. Visit alliancecommunity.org to learn more.
Your voice can be heard loud and clear right here on Trump Talk Live. Our local number is 239-0033. You can call us toll-free from anywhere in the USA at 800-927-0033.
Close it up. And we are back. Stand by for the picture. It'll be with me momentarily on Facebook, folks. Trump calls the chance for recovery in Texas better than ever because of the people of Texas. And he made some remarks on his arrival in Corpus Christi, Texas. No, you want to get rid of that and put up that. And we get, let's go to Texas cut number 1.
This is historic. It's epic what happened. But you know what? It happened in Texas, and Texas can handle anything.
He said that. And then he made remarks about the extraordinary job done by coordinated disaster release teams at federal, state, and local level. And let's listen to cut number 4.
And the job you have done is incredible. What you've done is, under circumstances, I said before, the word epic and historic, these are words used to describe this monster known as Harvey. But the job you've done is really special, and I said, let's fly over, let's see these great people. Nerve center, you're really the nerve center, and we appreciate it very much, and millions of people appreciate it, that I can tell you. But the world is watching, and the world is very impressed with what you're doing.
And huge praise from Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Greg Abbott spoke on Fox News Sunday, and cut number 1, he described the president's efforts.
I give FEMA a grade of A+, all the way from the president down. I've spoken to the president several times, to his cabinet members, such as Secretary of Homeland Security, such as the Administrator of FEMA, such as Tom Price, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, and so all across the board. From the White House to the federal administration to FEMA, they've been very helpful. We were able to see this storm come in a week or more in advance and get a lot of pre-positioning taken care of, whether it be the federal assets or the state assets or the local assets. So when it comes to preparation, we've never been more prepared for a storm than we have been this time.
That pretty much says it, Joe. Governor Abbott, President Trump was right on the job right beforehand, and you know that this president knows how to build things. And you know the the country is going to need infrastructure, but Texas is going to be the place we start with infrastructure. And we're going to talk for a moment, Joe, on tax reform, because the president proved once again that he can walk and chew gum at the same time. He's handling an international crisis. He's handling a natural disaster, but he's pushing his tax reform proposals. 4 basic principles, okay? Simplify this monster tax code. Number 1. Make the tax rates for business competitive so that businesses can compete around the world effectively. We have one of the highest rates. It used to be one of the lowest rates. Number 3, help the average working middle-class Americans keep more of their money with lower tax and simpler tax returns, that they don't have to spend money for an accountant to put together, and less of their disposable income gets into it. And 4th, repatriate trillions of dollars by making it less expensive for companies to operate here in the United States. Makes sense, doesn't it, Joe?
The number 4 is especially important, the repatriation of all this money that's overseas and will not come back unless they get a tax holiday of some kind or a tax break, and that's what they have in mind. That by itself is going to be a stimulus.
That'll be $4 trillion at least back into the economy. Now, here's another thing. The Bureau of Labor Statistics put out some information today that you might find startling. Americans spend more on taxes than they do on food and clothing combined every year. Think about that. More on taxes than on food and clothing, the essentials of life. Forget about death and taxes. You can't even live because you have to pay taxes. Now, he chose the place where Route 66 began to symbolize the rebirth of Main Street that will result from tax reform. And he wants to see a revival on that spine that used to be the main highway of America. It winds from Chicago to L.A., more than 2,000 miles all the way, goes the old song. Well, that's where he started, in Springfield, Missouri. Let's listen to cut 1.
But I'm especially pleased to be here in Springfield, the birthplace of a great American icon, the legendary Route 66. Who would have known that? This is the place where the Main Street of America got its start, and this is where America's Main Street will begin its big, beautiful comeback that you are seeing it right now. This is a comeback of historic proportions. You're seeing it happen right now.
You certainly are. And Route 66, he told these people, represents the spirit of American adventure and enterprise.
The communities along this historic route were a vivid symbol of America's booming industry. Truck drivers hauled made-in-America goods along this vital artery of commerce. Families passed through bustling towns on their way to explore the great American West. And high-quality manufacturing jobs lifted up communities, gave Americans a paycheck that could support a family. But in recent years, millions of Americans have watched that prosperity slip away in the rear view mirror. If we want to renew our prosperity and to restore opportunity, then we must reduce the tax burden on our companies and on our workers.
Indeed, we must. And I think we have a call tonight from Malcolm. Is this Malcolm Swaggerty?
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you for calling in, Malcolm. I understand you had a little heat stroke or heat exhaustion or something late this afternoon that prevented you from being with us on the crew tonight. But we're good to hear you. You're feeling better?
Yes, sir. Just called in with a question.
Yes, sir.
So Trump's facing criticism from the left, it seems, at every point he makes, no matter what decision. Do you think there's anything he can do to finally end the criticism, or is that just something we're going to deal with for the next 4 years?
Honestly, that's a
or eight years. Sorry.
Well, it'll be 8 years, Malcolm. I think you're very insightful with that question. The fact is, no. The people that hate him will hate him to the day they die, for no apparent reason that I can fathom. But here's the thing: some people hate him because of his style. Not necessarily the substance, but the style, the way he does business. But when you look at his program, it's kind of hard to argue with a lot of what he wants to do. But the hard left, they're going for leftist socialist ideology, and Trump is going in the other direction. So no, Malcolm, you and I and all the Trumpublicans out there are going to have to keep standing up for this president.
He will win, Malcolm, by winning. He's going to implement his agenda, the America First agenda, and things are going to get better and better with our economy, with our jobs. Regulations are being cut. We're freeing up the business. We're going to talk about it later in the show, but we hit a 3% GDP, which was supposedly a goal for later on. It's happening right now.
Yep.
You shut up the critics by winning, and that's what we're going to do.
That's right. We're going to Malcolm, thanks for calling in, and rest up for next week, okay?
All right, I'll be there.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And speaking of the 3% GDP, it was just announced yesterday, and Trump was able to announce it to the crowd. Remember when they said, when they rolled out the initial tax reform plan, and it was focused on the idea that it would pay for itself and help us to bring the deficit to zero? That is the yearly deficit, not the debt. Those are two different things. By 10 years, if we were at least at 3% growth, and they say, well, it's impossible. You'll never get the 3% growth. We haven't had 3% growth under Obama in 8 years. Guess what? Second quarter this year, the second 3 months of Trump's administration, guess what the GDP is? 3%. Ding, 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 ding. Hey, knock, knock, knock. Folks, this is before tax reform. If a tax reform comes in, guess what the GDP is going to be? Two or three times that.
I got a report here from the American Action Forum on Trump cutting regulation, just to show you the impact that he can have as the executive without the help of the Congress. He can do these things. He has put together regulatory actions that have reduced the Obama administration's burden on the American businesses and people. Nearly 6 million fewer paperwork burden hours. It amounts to a workload savings of roughly 3,000 full-time employees. And this is just the paperwork burden under Obama was 6,800,000+ hours. Under Obama, it's down to about 848,000 work hours. This is how you boost an economy.
So you say, so what? 3% GDP growth. What does that mean? Well, let's ask President Trump. What does 3% growth mean to America? Cut number 7.
If we achieve sustained 3% growth, that means 12 million new jobs and $10 trillion of new economic activity over the next decade. That's some numbers.
Those are the numbers, right? Now, also, he's saying, Congress, hello, your recess is almost over. This is your chance to redeem yourself. Do your job. Cut 8.
So this is our once-in-a-generation opportunity to deliver real tax reform for everyday, hardworking Americans. And I am fully committed to working with Congress to get this job done. And I don't want to be disappointed by Congress. Do you understand me? You understand?
Number 1 principle, the tax code right now is a complicated and treacherous web of crushing rules that cripple business. And here's a little lesson in history for you from the president on that.
In 1935, the basic 1040 form that most people file had 2 simple pages of instruction. Today, that basic form has 100 pages of instructions, and it's pretty complex stuff. The tax code is so complicated that more than 90% of Americans need professional help to do their own taxes.
We'll be back with a second, third, and fourth principle of tax reform when Trump Talk Live returns.
Your voice can be heard loud and clear right here on Trump Talk Live. Our local number is 239-0033. You can call us toll-free from anywhere in the USA at 800-927-0033. You have the right place on the dial, and when we return, you'll hear more Trump Talk Live, telling the truth about all things Trump.
Musicians rejoice. There's a music store right here in Daytona Beach that caters to you, not only with a huge selection of top brand products, but also with below internet pricing on all major gear. Carrying quality gear like Fender, Gibson, Paul Reed Smith, Yamaha, Electro Voice, Martin Taylor, and more, with over 1,000 guitars in stock. Plus, drums and percussion, keyboards and recording, DJ and entertainment lighting. They have the largest Taylor guitar inventory in Florida, and with below internet pricing, there's no other choice. Plus, there's value in having your gear today, and knowing it's right today, and knowing you have somewhere to take it if there's an issue. They have a knowledgeable and friendly staff, as well as factory-authorized repair techs on duty. Where is this place? Since 1989, Total Entertainment has been serving musicians and entertainers right here in Daytona Beach. Total Entertainment, locally owned and operated. Total Entertainment, 501 West International Speedway Boulevard, Daytona Beach. Call 386-254-8727.
Your voice can be heard loud and clear right here on Trump Talk Live. Our local number is 239-0033. You can call us toll-free from anywhere in the USA at 800-927-0033.
Okay, just wanted to say thank you to our sponsors, Sonia Mori and DeLand, your State Farm agent. Give her a call. Milne Roofing in Daytona Beach. With all this rain, you need to call Milne Roofing. And for the best pizza in DeLand, Marino's Pizza.
Okay, now on to tax reform again. We told you we talked about the principles, the 4 principles. Now, we talked about simplifying the monster tax code. Okay, we got that part. Second principle, cut 12. The president talked in Springfield this week about competitive tax rates. A little history lesson again, cut 12.
In 1986, Ronald Reagan led the world by cutting our corporate tax rate to 34%. That was below the average rate for developed countries at the time. Everybody thought that was a monumental thing that happened. But then, under this pro-America system, our economy boomed, the middle class thrived, and median family income increased. Other countries saw the success. They looked at us. They saw, what is America doing? What's happening with the United States? And they acted very swiftly by cutting their taxes lower and lower and lower and reforming their tax systems to be far more competitive. They are taking us, frankly, to the cleaners. So we have no choice. We must lower our taxes. And your senator, Claire McCaskill, she must do this for you, and if she doesn't do it for you, you have to vote her out of office.
Okay, Claire McCaskill, the Democrat, and he also talked about how the Democrats are going to obstruct him every way. They're going to be, tax cuts for the rich. No, that's not what this is about. We're taxing our businesses into oblivion. They can't hire people if they can't afford to do business in this country. It's as simple as that. We've lost our competitive edge. He wants a 15% corporate tax rate. Bring it to 15% to make us highly competitive. We'd be almost the lowest in the entire world then, Joe. And that's the way to go. The third principle, tax relief for middle-class families. Let's go to cut 18.
We will lower taxes for middle-income Americans so they can keep more of their hard-earned paychecks. This includes helping parents afford child care and the cost of raising a family. We believe that ordinary Americans know better than Washington how to spend their own money, and we want to help them take home as much of their money as possible and then spend it.
Thank you, Mr. President. He reminded us it is our money, not the government's money. Our fourth principle, repatriate trillions of dollars in wealth now invested overseas, and this is in cut 19.
We want to bring back trillions of dollars in wealth that's parked overseas. Because of our high tax rate and horrible, outdated bureaucratic rules, large companies that do business overseas will often park their profits offshore to avoid paying a high United States tax if the money is brought back home. So they leave the money over there. The amount of money we're talking about is anywhere from $3 to $5 trillion. Can you believe that? By making it less punitive for companies to bring back this money, and by making the process far less bureaucratic and difficult, we can return trillions and trillions of dollars to our economy and spur billions of dollars in new investments in our struggling communities and throughout our nation.
Sounds good to me. And he says we just need to unite, and the Democrats have to get out of the way and let this happen, and we'll unleash the economy, the American enterprise economy. And of course, the Democrats don't want to see him get reelected, so they want to see it happen. But here's what he said to finish up.
If we do this, if we unite in the name of common sense and the name of common good, then we will add millions and millions of new jobs, bring back trillions of dollars, and we will give America the competitive advantage that it so desperately needs and has been looking for so long. It's time.
Vic,
it is time, Joe.
Vic, the rulemaking part of what he was talking about is the same report from the American Action Forum. This is a quote. It says, in terms of both overall rulemaking and other designated rules as economically significant, with an annual economic impact of more than $100 million, the Trump administration has set record lows in all overall rulemaking volume. Trump has promised to cut rules in the campaign. He said he'd cut 2 regulations for every new one that's imposed. He's actually, so far, in the first 7 months, has cut 16 new regulations, old regulations for every new one that's been imposed. They're reviewing right now more cutting of rules that could save up to $55 billion in cost.
Well, obviously, nobody's missing these regulations. So
you're taking the handcuffs off the greatest economy in the world. We're going to go to work.
That's right. Now, while all this is going on, and he's talking about this, he's dealing with that madman in Pyongyang. And Rex Tillerson was on the Sunday shows, and he was discussing it. T-Rex, we call him. His initial reaction to North Korea's firing ballistic missiles on Friday, and this was before the additional one was fired over Japan. Cut number 1.
Well, the firing of any ballistic missile is a violation of UN Security Council resolutions, and we do view it as a provocative act, a provocative act against the United States and our allies. We continue to want the Kim regime to understand there is a different path that he can choose. The international community has been quite clear with the unanimous 15-0 approval of the UN Security Council resolution imposing the most stringent sanctions ever to be imposed on North Korea. There is also a unified international voice echoing our messages that no one wants to see a nuclear Korean peninsula. So we're all unified in our mission to see a denuclearized Korean peninsula. We hope for the opportunity to engage with them as to how we might achieve that.
Boy, what I wouldn't give for a radio voice like that.
Yeah, it's like the voice of God when he talks, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. Another military-related issue, but once again, refuting the fake news that's going on. They were reporting this past week, that Mattis, the Secretary of Defense, was defying Trump's order on transgenders being excluded from the military. Nothing could be further from the truth. Tuesday night, the media erupted in reports of Secretary of Defense James Mattis defying President Trump by enacting a so-called freeze on the transgender military ban. In a shocking twist that turned out, not very shocking really, to be fake news. Mattis is currently developing a plan to enact the trans ban as directed by the President of the United States, which is set for implementation in March of 2018. So once again, they lied again. Now, fake news. Another fake news example. The New York Times this week printed 5 separate retractions of misquotes of the remarks made by President Trump after Charlottesville. We'll get on to that in a minute, but it's more example of fake news. But this transgender ban, yeah, now the ACLU is challenging this in federal court because they're using the Equal Protection Clause. Realize this was never in effect. The transgenders were never allowed in the military before Obama. And now Trump is simply reversing that. But, of course, it's going to be challenged, and it'll wind its way through the federal courts.
This is the craziness of our PC culture. The transgender population in general is, I mean, it's a small percentile. Like
6,000 out of 1.5 million.
in the military, yeah. It's a infinitesimal issue, really, when you talk about percentage-wise. And yet, if you listen to fake news, this is the most important thing going on besides the FLOTUS footwear.
Yeah, the FLOTUS footwear, of course. Maybe they'll handle stilettos to the GIs now, too.
We don't know.
Yeah, you never know. Okay, now, on to another controversy that happened as the storm was happening. Once again, they said Trump tried to hide this behind the storm, but I don't think so. They weren't going to ignore this. Sheriff Joe Arpaio has been a subject of quite a bit of controversy, and the President of the United States pardoned him. Now, what happened with Joe, so you all understand, the pattern over many, many years in the United States was the sheriffs across the land, who are chief law enforcement officers in their respective counties, would be federalized by the feds to check up on immigration people, because the feds can't be everywhere, right? Obama reversed that policy, took away that authority. Joe Arpaio said, wait a minute, that's the law. You can't do that on your own. So Joe Arpaio continued to do it. He was hauled in front of a federal judge, a lefty federal judge, who said, stop doing it. And Joe Arpaio said, no, I don't think so, because what you're ordering me to do is illegal. What I'm doing is legal. Well, the judge, of course, is a federal judge, so he said, you're in contempt. No trial. You're guilty of contempt. No jury, no trial. Now, on appeal, this would have been thrown out anyway, but Trump decided this is a no-brainer.
You know how they got away with that no jury is that the penalty for this was 6 months.
That's right.
In prison, and anything 6 months or less, they do not allow you to have a jury trial. The judge can just decide for themselves, which is exactly what the judge wanted to do.
He wanted to do that, just to punish, and he was singled out. There are many sheriffs doing the same thing around the country, not to mention all the sanctuary cities defying federal law, right? Okay, well, so Sheriff Joe had this reaction to his pardon.
Well, it's great. I love that president. He supports law enforcement, and I'm very humble. If you recall, 2 years ago, I supported him, and I said publicly recently, pardon or no pardon, I will be with him to the end.
And the president had this to say in cut 3 on his pardon.
Well, a lot of people think it was the right thing to do, John. And actually, in the middle of a hurricane, even though it was a Friday evening, I assumed the ratings would be far higher than they would be normally. You know, the hurricane was just starting. And I put it out that I had pardoned, as we say, Sheriff Joe. He's done a great job for the people of Arizona. He's very strong on borders, very strong on illegal immigration. He is loved in Arizona. I thought he was treated unbelievably unfairly when they came down with their big decision to go get him right before the election voting started, as you know, and he lost in a fairly close election. He would have won the election, but they just hammered him just before the election. I thought that was a very, very unfair thing to do.
So the president stepped in and corrected it.
Vic, you know, as usual, the Democrats went crazy. But, of course, our friends in Arizona, John McCain and Jeff Flake, our Republican senators, also did not like it. McCain said that the pardon of Joe Arpaio who illegally profiled Latinos, undermines his claim for the respect of the rule of law. Sheriff Joe had a couple words for McCain. He says, well, he doesn't like the president. This is a quote. He says, he doesn't like the president, so he goes after me and figures he'll make the president look bad. He says, that's sad, but that's how politicians are. Then Jeff Flake, our friend out there in Arizona, who we're going to primary right out of business with Dr. Kelly Ward.
She's ahead of him by 26 points, the latest poll.
That's what we want to know. He said, I would have preferred that the president honor the judicial process and let it take its course. Arpaio, is that how you say his name?
Arpaio.
Sheriff Joe. Sheriff Joe asserted that Flake, quote, is trying to make points with the mayor and all those other Democrat politicians and all those activists. They're all saying the same thing. This is really something when your Republican senators come out like this and they're lining up with the Democratic narrative.
Joe Arpaio is 85 years old, but he's thinking about running against Jeff Flake.
Well, I mean, that's a nice thought. I hope he doesn't do that.
No, I think Kelly Ward's got it well in hand. We're going to return with some other odds and ends you're going to want to stay and listen for when Trump Talk Live returns.
Your voice can be heard loud and clear right here on Trump Talk Live. Our local number is 239-0033. You can call us toll-free from anywhere in the USA at 800-927-0033. We'll return in a moment to bring you more Trump Talk Live, shedding the light of truth from that shining city on a hill.
It's time to funk up Daytona Beach this summer with the free Midtown Motown Concert Series. Head over to Cypress Park at the Midtown Center in Daytona Beach for the best rhythm and soul sounds all summer long. The concert series features the best Motown tribute bands over 6 weekends this summer, starting at 7 p.m. Also, stroll around the park and visit the community programs booths with games and activities for kids. Or pick up some food and drinks from local eateries and enjoy the concert from the bleachers or your chairs and blankets. Get moving and grooving Saturday, September 9th with headliner Pocket Change, starting at 7 p.m. There's plenty of parking at Cypress Park and the Midtown Center. Cypress Park's located at 981 George Ingram Boulevard, Daytona Beach. For more information, text MOTOWN to 40691. That's MOTOWN to 40691. Sponsored by the City of Daytona Beach, Pepsi, and Metro PCS. Brought to you by WNDB.
Your voice can be heard loud and clear right here on Trump Talk Live. Our local number is 239-0033. You can call us toll-free from anywhere in the USA at 800-927-0033.
Welcome back, Trump Republicans. We have some more items of interest to you. Attorney General, you may remember when Obama was in the White House, he decided that your local police did not need personnel carriers, amphibious vehicles, a special hardware that the military no longer needs, that you already paid for as taxpayers, and were just going into storage. He didn't want to give those to local police because he was afraid they would just use them too much. But look at Hurricane Harvey. If you need an answer to why you need an amphibious vehicle or some special helicopter or something else, you know why you need that kind of hardware. Local police need that. They need it for crowd control. Look what goes on in places like Berkeley where they refuse to use the police to stop these thugs. We'll talk about that in a minute. But Attorney General Sessions spoke to the Fraternal Order of Police this week, and he talked about the importance of providing them with equipment and showing that they have their back. And here's cut 3.
He is rescinding restrictions from the prior administration that limited your agency's ability to get equipment through federal programs, including life-saving gear.
As you might imagine, that's pretty popular with local law enforcement. And he described what kind of gear they're providing.
Life-saving gear to make your lives safer, like Kevlar vests and helmets, first responder and rescue equipment like they're using in Texas right now.
It only makes sense to provide this gear because it's surplus.
One sheriff told me earlier this year about how, due to prior administration restrictions, the federal government made his department return an armored vehicle that can change the dynamics in an active shooter situation. These are the types of helmets and gear that stopped a bullet and saved the life of an officer during the Orlando nightclub shooting. This is the type of equipment officers needed when they pursued and ultimately killed terrorists in San Bernardino.
So it ultimately makes sense, Joe, and it's taxpayer money that's already paid for this. It sits idle unless it's used this way. It doesn't get used by the military anymore, but it's perfectly sufficient. You can talk to the prior sheriff of Volusia County. Ben Johnson used to talk about this and how important this stuff was and how terrible it was that Obama was taking it away.
They had a armored personnel carrier, didn't they? They had to give it back, I remember, right?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
In Volusia County.
Yeah. Now, the New York Times, all the news that fits we distort. Okay. Glenn Thrush bungled a quote of Trump's comment on Charlottesville. Okay, here's one correction. August 14th, 2017. An earlier version of this article misquoted part of President Trump's statement on the violence in Charlottesville. He blamed many sides, not all sides, for the violence that left one woman dead. Okay, so they said they misquoted him and changed the character. And also bungled the quote that same day in a report on outraged CEOs, prompting an identical correction, saying earlier version, blah, blah. But you see, people resigned from the Trump commissions. People disassociated some from Trump. Gary Kahn, his economics advisor, almost threatened to quit, all based on quotes that were lies by the New York Times. They completely misquoted on not one occasion, but on 5 or 6 occasions, and it could not have been an accident.
Well, they're just the flagship of fake news, along with the Washington Post and CNN and the rest. Vic, there's a website called Politico. It's a very liberal website. They constantly after Trump. And people have talked to me about, well, are we losing our base? Is Trump base getting worried, shaky? Are they getting tired of? Do they think maybe we should just move on or something? And the answer is no. My theory is, and I think we've talked about this, the Trump base is expanding. It's getting larger. And there was a comment on there that I printed out because I think it's representative of what's going on. This is a person, he calls himself John. It doesn't matter on these blogs. He's John Kaz. But anyway, he says, I was a reluctant Trump supporter in 2016, and I basically voted against Hillary because I thought she was dangerous. But now I'm very happy with the Trump presidency, aside from a few things, but no one's perfect. He says, it's the pathetic attacks by the media more than almost anything else that have made me start to like him more and more. He does good things, yes, but truthfully, my disdain for the fake news media is a more powerful force in my favorability of him than even Trump himself. This is, I think, a very common sentiment out there, and that's why I say the Trump base is expanding.
John Cass is a very reasonable columnist for the Chicago Tribune, is he not?
Well, this is not the same guy. I don't
not the same John Cass.
It's a blogger.
Oh, okay, somebody else. Okay. Democrats hype up the leftist baits, but remain silent after violent Antifa attack in Berkeley. They were beating up Trumpublicans. They were beating up conservatives, people with Make America Great Again hats. Nancy Pelosi herself, Fancy Nancy, actually came forward and condemned Antifa. This was they're starting to realize, Joe, that they've created a Frankenstein's monster by indoctrinating these kids with all this leftist nonsense ideology against the values that are traditional American values and injecting them with so much hate. And now it's coming back to bite on them because the American people are fed up with this.
They dress up like ISIS. They cover their faces.
That's right.
They wear black. They cover their faces. They bring weapons with them. They bring bags of urine and other noxious things. And then they're associated with the Democratic Party. And Democrats are starting to understand this is a terrible thing for them. Of course, I've been watching them for a long time, and I say, go to it, boys.
We have a caller, Gary in DeBerry. That rhymes. He's on Trump Talk Live. Gary.
Hey, how you guys doing tonight?
Good to talk with you.
Hey, listen, quick one. You were talking earlier about the Washington Post, and we how they are. Well, I have a real concern. I'm kind of offended at their name because they're named the Washington Post after Washington, D.C., where they're located, and that's named after George Washington, which is slave owner.
Oh.
And I'm very offended by Washington Post name, and I think they should change their name.
Well, Washington was also the president who legendarily never told a lie, too. So, I mean, so the Washington Post doesn't deserve the name for that reason, too.
Point well taken, Gary. You're right. It just shows how crazy this can all get.
Thanks for calling, Gary.
Where does it stop, right?
Yeah. Okay. Now, here's something else. Antifa is whining that the media has actually stopped ignoring their antics. They're actually, because we're seeing now some of the violence they're committing, these thugs in the streets, and they're complaining that, well, you're showing us, assaulting people. We don't like that. That makes us look bad. Well, then stop doing it. I mean, are you kidding?
They're paid to do it. That's a whole other story for another show, but they are paid to do it. These are not just haphazard people out there.
Well, of course, in Berkeley, the cops are in cahoots with them. So, they're not that much different, the Antifa in 2017 than the KKK were in 1900, or for that matter, the brown shirts in Nazi Germany. I mean, these people are, people misunderstand. They say Nazi is right-wing. It's not really. Nazi stood for National Socialist. They were left-wingers, not right-wing. Fascists, the same thing. But what they are is thugs in both cases.
And street violence is a way for control. And Antifa is using street violence as a method to gain control.
They smash, intimidate, and bully and kill.
And in some ways, they are controlling certain environments. Like at Berkeley, a conservative speaker cannot go out there because the violence is so great. They don't do it.
First Amendment is under suspension in Berkeley.
Yes.
The home of the so-called free speech movement.
Ironic.
So much for that. Well, here's some an NFL legend. Talk about the NFL, and of course, there's all this noise. The ACLU is threatening the NFL with lawsuits and boycotts, saying you're racist, not acknowledging the fact that 70% of the players and coaches in the NFL are black and getting paid millions upon millions of dollars. Okay, well, because Colin Kaepernick can't find a job now because he cut himself loose thinking as a free agent because of his antics.
Well, he's a lousy quarterback, Vic. I watch football.
Well, that's that aside,
Right.
But he's also a black. No, not that. He's also a bad mark on football because of the way he behaves on the sidelines.
Right.
And so, Jim Brown, the NFL legend, I met him and interviewed him. Actually, he did a show with me 25 years ago. He's done some great things for America. American was his organization. Jim Brown has never been subject to any scandal I'm aware of, but Jim Brown is a beloved NFL figure. He had this to say about Colin Kaepernick.
I'm going to give you the real deal. I'm an American. I don't desecrate my flag and my national anthem. I'm not going to do anything against the flag and the national anthem. I'm going to work within those situations. But this is my country, and I'll work out the problems, but I'll do it in an intelligent manner.
That was Jim Brown, NFL legend. Now, our local legend, Ron DeSantis, our congressman, who might very well, before you know it, be running for governor of Florida, but he hasn't said so yet. Ron DeSantis came up with an amendment that would pull the funding for Robert Mueller, muzzle Mueller, if he doesn't come up with anything in 180 days. Say, basically, either put up or shut up, Mr. Mueller. You've been chasing around doing all this stuff. Come up with something. Give us a reason to continue funding you. Otherwise, we're putting you out of business. Ron DeSantis has said that, and I think that's about time.
It's a blank check that they gave the special counsel.
Now, here's an outrage that just came this afternoon. We learned that Comey, in July 5th, he had that news conference exonerating Hillary after listing all her crimes. Comey wrote the report, started writing it in April, before he had ever talked to her or the FBI had ever talked to any of the 17 major witnesses, or before they'd granted immunity to anybody. He'd already decided to exonerate her. So you talk about the fix being in.
That's a bombshell revelation, folks. You can find that at the Washington Examiner online.
And the FBI says lack of public interest is a good reason to withhold Hillary's further emails.
Now, of all the lame excuses, lack of public interest, my dogs want to know what's in those emails.
That's right, and your dog could probably interpret them better than most. But anyhow, we want to thank you for joining us. We enjoy doing this every week for you. We want to tell you the truth and give you as much of it as we can squeeze into an hour, and we never have enough time to get it all in. So thanks for watching.
Stuck in a state of compensation stagnation? Another year with no raise. Then let State Farm agent Sonia Mori in DeLand help you get to a better state with a discount double check that can stretch your hard-earned dollars a little farther. Sonia will go through your car insurance to make sure you're getting all the discounts you deserve. Discounts that could add up to 40% and put a few $100 extra in your pocket. Sound good? Then get your budget to a better state by calling State Farm agent Sonia Mori in DeLand today. Discounts may vary state to state.
You've been listening to Trump Talk Live, making America great again, 1 hour at a time. Follow us at Volusia County Republican Party on Facebook or go to our website, TrumpTalkLive.com for updates. Join your Trump-Publican hosts, Vic Baker and Tony Ledbetter, for another fearless edition of Trump Talk Live next Thursday at 7 p.m. right here on WNDB 1150 AM and 93.5 FM. Trump Talk Live is presented each week by the Republican Party of Volusia County, where we the people have the right voice when it comes to defending America's founding values. In God we trust, in America we believe.
The Republican Executive Committee of Volusia County is responsible for the content of this advertising.
News Talk, FM 93.5, AM 1150, WNDB Daytona Beach. Proud to